Hello everyone, Shirley here. Blizzard recently landed themselves on hot water with the announcement they were going to be removing master looting as an option in Battle for Azeroth. Well, they've done it again. Yesterday, they put out this forum post regarding the latest beta build for the expansion, and in it they decided to do something that affects every class in the game in a lot more ways than the master looting option would have done. So what they've decided to do is put all DPS and HPS cooldowns back on the global cooldown, as well as on-use trinkets back on the GCD. Now what that means for those unaware is that now all your offensive abilities, cooldown-wise, something like Recklessness and Avatar, Combustion, that kind of thing, Wings on a Paladin, will now require you to wait after each press to then activate an ability, or vice versa. You'll have to wait to activate them after casting another attack. So this is going to do a lot of things. This is really going to slow down the pacing of your opener and in combat, and a lot of abilities that have shorter cooldowns but are still considered a cooldown is just going to slow down the gameplay even more. So this has a lot of big repercussions. For example, we take a class like a Fury Warrior, and they have a ton of on-use abilities already. So now you're going to charge him, and potentially you have to pop Avatar, wait a cooldown, pop Bloodbath, wait another cooldown, then pop Recklessness, wait another cooldown after Recklessness, and then you can finally attack your target with Rampage or whatever. And there's one more thing we're forgetting on this. Since it's labeled as all DPS cooldowns, does this also include in any other plans coming up to include racials? So if you're playing an Orc or a Troll that has Berserking or Blood Fury, is that also going to be on the global cooldown now? Now they say in this post that interrupts aren't going to be back on the cooldown like it used to be way back in the day. So things like Arcane Torrent, since they interrupt, shouldn't be on the GCD, but since it's technically a DPS increase for certain classes, is it going to be? I don't know. So potentially you take a Fury Warrior, and now they have to wait 4 global cooldowns before they can even attack their target. This is huge. One, they've counteracted this measure by increasing the Recklessness window for Fury as example to give you the extra second, so you're not actually losing uptime during the cooldown. The problem is that they haven't done this for everything, and we don't know if they plan on doing it for everything, and in what way either. I don't think they would increase the window of Avatar, for example, by 4 seconds to cover the 4 extra GCDs that you now need before you can even attack your target. So this is just going to be a flat nerf for a lot of classes that have multiple cooldowns to stack. So you're thinking, well, if you're not going to be able to do that and you're losing this window of uptime, then you just won't stack them anymore. You'll gap them and use them accordingly, which is still an indirect nerf because you can no longer stack things like Recklessness, Avatar, Bloodbath all on top of one another to get that added benefit out of each of them. So it's still a nerf in that way. And on top of all this, they're removing the artifact weapons next expansion. So there's a ton of traits and abilities that synergize with each class that we're simply losing, which means in a lot of cases that the combat in and of itself is getting simpler and just slowing down as is. And now that we compound this with this change in design philosophy, just means that combat is going to be that much more slow and methodical for every class in the game. And a lot of classes are already pretty slow as is, so this is just, I don't know, making things more clunky than I think they need to be going forward. But it also is going to impact raiding in a big way with the addition of the trinkets being on the global cooldown. So you're going to have all these abilities, and then if you add in a new raid trinket that's on use effect, say, and as we know that a lot of these are really powerful to stack with cooldowns, like on a Fury Warrior, where everything is scaling off those damage modifiers. So now if you add an on-use trinket to that, say like glaives, the Umbral Moon glaives, you have to burn another GCD for that, and then your window's almost over, you're losing less uptime within it for your own abilities. It's just going to devalue these trinkets in a lot of ways, I think, because the passive trinkets that just proc or do something naturally are going to be more sought after because you're not wasting that GCD to use them. And this just detracts from your choice as a player, as a raider, to pick the right trinket for the right job if that choice is arbitrarily taken away from you because you simply can't fit it into your rotation anymore. So I'm not really sure if this is, you know, the best direction for the game combat-wise. I see their reasoning behind it. I'm not going to read the whole post. You can go on MMO Champion or on the forums and read it yourselves. But the examples they give detail PvP and stuff, and as a PvPer, like, I can understand why they want to telegraph attacks and positions more obviously. So if you pop Recklessness as a warrior, it gives that 1 second window basically for your opponent to react and counter it before it even happens. So right now in PvP, people have to react very fast, snappy, on the spot anyway. So if you pop Recklessness and you're fighting like a mage or something and he sees that, he's going to blink out. So you get in maybe your one Mortal Strike that you have macroed into that, or your first attack, whatever it may be. So now they could spend that time, and if things like blink stay off the GCD, they'll see you pop that, and then they can blink in that downtime when you can't do anything. You can't even utilize that cooldown. So this brings up counterplay for certain situations where a healer might have to take that GCD to then pop one of his healing cooldowns to help mitigate, you know, that burst, and that's interesting. But other classes, this doesn't impact in the same way. So there needs to be there's a fine line between what works and what doesn't for counterplay, because a lot of things could just be cheesed and you could just immediately forego and negate all the offensive output of certain classes. And other things, like a mage, this impacts huge, because like a fire mage has to pop combustion like as his fireball goes off basically, or during mid-cast, and now you can't do this, so it's really like limiting their play potential. The skill cap of each class is lowered by this because you have to burn that extra GCD to do all these cooldowns. In conclusion, I just don't agree with them changing this just off of a whim, it seems, after all these years, that they're putting all these cooldowns back on the GCD. I think it's going to make certain classes and specs really clunky, just slow. So my feedback to Blizzard is I hope they reevaluate this decision and probably revert it. Anyway, that's all for today, guys. Let me know what you think about this change and even the Master Looter stuff. BFA looks great otherwise, but some of the design decisions have been questionable. Anyway, that's all for today. Have a good one. Peace.